Well, hey, I'm glad to see that you are back for part 2 of the mitered picture frame. So in this episode, we're going to be creating the rabbets. There's going to be two. One is a functional rabbet that allows the glass and the picture to be held into the back. It sets down in it. And then the other rabbet is a bit of a design feature, if you will. So it's really cool, it's really simple, but it sets the frame off really nice. So let's get to it.
Okay, so picking up where we left off last week, we just want to go ahead and make sure that we organize our project, have all the pieces where we want them, and mark out our set of rabbets that we're getting ready to cut into the frame. So that's what I'm doing here, and I'm going to mark the bottom side rabbets first. Now these rabbets are going to be about 1/4 inch deep and 1/4 inch wide. This is where your glass is going to sit down into the frame and your picture. So we just want to mark these so we don't get confused. Now here I am setting the fence and the depth gauge right there. So I want to set my depth gauge to 1/4 inch high, and then I want to set my fence to 1/4 inch wide. So lock that in place and you should be good to go. Okay, a little bit of an adjustment here. Go ahead and show you that. Again, that's the fence. Set that at 1/4 inch and tighten it down. Okay, so now you can see I have the workpiece clamped here, and I'm going to go ahead and start cutting these rabbets in. Now just go slow and easy with this and you should not have any trouble. See how I'm holding the front with my thumb? My fingers are on the fence underneath, keeping everything steady, and my hand above is just kind of not gripping the handle but kind of just pushing. And when you're a beginner, that's the easiest way to do this. So just take nice, slow, smooth cuts. And that's looking pretty good. Now I'm checking here to make sure that everything is square. You don't want a sloped rabbet. It's not critical here, but it's important to check that. And as you practice, you'll get better at cutting rabbets. But it's pretty easy if you take your time. Okay, so I'm just showing you there on that piece. That's the other rabbet I'll be cutting eventually. But now I'm moving on to all the rest of my pieces and cutting all the inside rabbets. Sometimes you're going to have to move your clamps around. I didn't have the greatest setup, so I had to play around quite a bit until I actually got it to a point where I could cut the rabbets in. Now here I'm just laying the pieces side by side to make sure that the rabbets match. If they don't, just go back and keep working on them, because that depth gauge is going to keep them right where they need to be. So it's probably just that you might have missed something if they aren't matching. So here I'm working on the longer piece now. I just want to give you a close-up of what that looks like. Again, I had to play with my clamps quite a bit. I didn't have much to grip on. I needed some holdfast or something like that, which I didn't have. So, you know, just get creative and make it work. That's what I did, and I didn't see a solution right away, but I worked on it until I figured it out. Again, I'll check and make sure that both pieces match up and look good, and they do. Okay, so now I'm just checking everything to make sure it looks good overall, and it does. Now here I'm marking the center of the frame because I'm going to lay in my next rabbet soon, so I need to adjust my plane again for this next set of rabbets. And it's somewhere around between 4 and 5/8 for this frame that I chose to use, but I'm just going right pretty much in the middle of the main frame section. And we're just going to cut a shallow rabbet in to make the frame kind of pop so it's not completely plain. So once again, I'm going to set my depth adjuster, and I'm using business cards here, 2 business cards, to give me a really shallow depth. And what's really nice about that is if I lose that setting, if that comes loose, the depth gauge, I can always just go back and lay 2 business cards underneath, reset it, and it's a piece of cake. I don't have to calculate anything. So give that little trick a try. It works really nice. Now, what I ended up having to do in this case was to take off my depth gauge because I could not get around my clamps. So the last trick I showed you won't work here, but instead I just tried to take the same number of strokes on each piece of the frame. So I think I took 9 or 10 to make the shallow rabbit. So just do that in this case if you have trouble with the depth gauge getting in the way. So here's what it looks like. We're finishing up and it looks even all the way around. I'm really, really happy with this. So that's pretty much it for this part of the project. Oh, and one other thing. Go ahead and clean up your pieces with your plane, your smoothing plane, on a really shallow setting, and it'll look nice.
Okay, well that wraps it up for part 2 of the picture frame. Unfortunately, I have to go to a part 3. I didn't want to do that, but I'm struggling with the way I hold down my work. I don't have any hold fasts, and I don't have a few other things that I would like to. So sometimes on these thin pieces, if I don't do maybe an order of operations properly, it's just difficult to hold everything down and work on it. Anyway, stick around. One more week. We're going to finish this up, and there's going to be some really cool things we do. In the last video, we're going to use, I think they call them splines for the corners. Anyway, we're going to set some walnut down into the corners, and that way it's going to be a two-tone wood. You have the pine for the frame and the walnut at the corners. It's going to be really, really nice. So stick around for the next video, and I hope to see you then. Until then, always remember, life's most important order. Love God, love each other, and woodwork. We'll see you next time.